Hi everyone, we're going to find the domain of some basic square root functions. The first one we're going to do is h of x equals the square root of 3x minus 12. The second one is going to be g of x equals the square root of 1 minus x. And the last one we're going to do is q of x equals the square root of negative x minus 2. The first thing you need to know about these is that when you do your parent function, and remember, I'm just going to sketch this real quick. Yx. This function looks like this, right? You should know your parent function. So it's something like that. We know that the domain of the parent function has to be x such that x is greater than or equal to 0. Okay? So inside here, this has to be 0 or bigger. It'll be 0, 1, 2, and it starts here, and then you graph it here. So with that in mind, we can do these three domains here. Okay, so for the first one, the h of x, we have h of x equals the square root of 3x minus 12. So I know inside of here, this whole thing has to be greater than, x has to be greater than or equal to 0 based on our parent function. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to set this to 3x minus 12 has to be greater than or equal to 0. When I solve for x, I get 3x is greater than or equal to 12, so x is greater than or equal to 4. So I know when I plug in 4 here, I will get 0. So if I plug in 4, I'll get 0. And then, which means that this is going to be 0. Then I can plug in 5 and plug in 6, and it's going to be greater than or equal to 0. So the way you write it is you can just write x. The domain is x such that x is greater than or equal to 4. Or you can just say, if you're talking about real numbers, all real numbers such that x is greater than or equal to 4. And that's how you set that up. Okay, the next one is g of x equals the square root of 1 minus x. So again, we know this quantity in here has to be greater than or equal to 0. So I'm going to set it to be greater than or equal to 0. And I'm going to get negative x is greater than or equal to negative 1. Now, when I negate this, so I'm solving for x, I get x. And remember, when you negate, the inequality has to change. Is going to be less than or equal to 1. So my domain is x such that x is less than or equal to 1. Now what you should do sometimes with these is just think about it. If you just think about it, you know when you plug in 1 here, you're going to get square root of 1 minus 1, which is square root of 0. But if you plug in a bigger number, say 2, you get 1 minus 2, which is square root of negative 1, and we can't have that. So we only can have numbers 1 or less. So kind of use some common sense on this as well. And the last one we have is q of x equals the square root of negative x minus 2. Again, we're just going to set this to be greater than or equal to 0 because that quantity has to be greater than or equal to 0. So we get negative x is greater than or equal to 2. Let's negate this because we're solving for x. So you get x, got to flip that. So x is less than or equal to negative 2. And you can just write it like this. The domain is x such that x is less than or equal to negative 2, or I prefer, we want it to be all real numbers, but the restrictions are x is less than or equal to negative 2. Now the last set we're going to do are square roots that are also involved with rational functions. Thank you and have a nice day. Bye-bye.